Hi, I'm Adrian Strittmatter. Welcome to Bricks and More. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Sentis, a global creative consultancy specializing in destinations, real estate, and the hospitality sector. Bricks and More is all about exploring how to generate, unlock, and maximize real estate value. Our mission is to challenge outdated and limiting notions of how this is done. In each episode, we talk to top professionals to uncover innovative strategies that drive short, medium, and long-term gains. So if you're passionate about making real estate more valuable for more people, you're in the right place. Welcome to Bricks and More. Across Europe, real estate is at a real turning point. Cities are evolving, occupier needs are shifting, and entire asset classes are being rethought. So standing still is simply no longer an option. Today, value is created through development, repurposing, and reinvention. In this episode of Bricks and More, we explore how long-term value is unlocked at scale. Through disciplined development strategies, through adaptive reuse, and through a deep understanding of cities, capital, and occupiers. This is a conversation about where future value lies and how to deliver it. To explore this, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Marc Fauchille, Managing Director and Head of Development and Repurposing for Europe at LaSalle Investment Management. LaSalle is one of the world's leading real estate investors with a global platform of nearly 90 billion in assets under management. Marc leads some of the firm's most complex strategies across Europe, focusing on development, repositioning, and repurposing. His work sits at the intersection of market demand, urban evolution, and sustainability. With deep experience across cycles and asset classes, he brings a powerful perspective on how value is created, not just through acquisition, but through transformation. Marc joins us to share how LaSalle identifies opportunity, delivers performance, and reimagines assets for the future. Marc, welcome to Bricks and More Paris Special.
Hi, Adrian. Thanks you for having me.
It's a great pleasure. We've got lots of, learn from your vast experience across development and repurposing across Europe. You work for LaSalle, one of the world's most established sort of real estate investors. What drew you to real estate first off? And how did you get? What's your journey?
Yeah, it's a long story. I've been always passionate about architecture, value creation, placemaking, and cities. And my background naturally was construction, real estate, and finance. Mm-hmm. And I worked 10 years basically at JLL as an advisor. So I was working for clients. And naturally, I would like to take the wheel and be part and be responsible of the creation of value. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I joined LaSalle 6 years ago. I have the chance to work in a truly international environment with a really talented professional. I have the chance to drive and to grow the development platform across Europe. I manage basically a team of assets and development managers working over 6 countries, over more than 20 projects, representing roughly 400,000 square meters. Construction, development or refurbishment, bringing existing assets to long-term performance assets.
And the current market has been, different words have been used, dynamic, fluctuating, challenging. As you mentioned, you've got these big sort of developments. How has the market been for you in terms of those challenges or those macro shifts and fluctuations? How have you seen it?
In fact, my perspective changed a little bit. Just to reuse your title of your podcast, I come from bricks and mortar to bricks and more in terms of perspective. Obviously, the physical aspect of the building itself, such a location or building quality, still matter, but it's not really sufficient anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
Today, value also comes from the end-user experience, the operational performance, the sustainability. And on top of that, you have also the adaptability. We can see that the current pace of a market cycle require more future-ready assets. Yeah. In a slower market, the value it's more easy to secure. As when you have a long-term play, you don't really need this flexibility to adapt your product. But in a faster market, you need to have a product able to adapt and exactly this is a shift and always be relevant for occupiers over time. And this is why we need to use development skills, repurposing skills, flexibility, agility, bringing that to the buildings to remain relevant over time.
In terms of adaptability and flexibility, which are really key notions, how would you define those in terms of what do they touch upon? In terms of what are the different things that would apply to adaptability or flexibility? How do you look at that? How do you define it, basically?
For me, the adaptability is the capability of a building to remain relevant over time. Mm-hmm. It means that you need to physically organize a building in a way that it could evolve without requiring heavy refurb each time there is a market shift or a new trend coming on the market. Yeah. And
in terms of sort of, as you said, you've worked as an advisor at JLL and now at LaSalle, and you work across the different sort of, different markets, as you mentioned. And we talked about occupier demand as being one of those elements in the same things as adaptability. What has radically changed in terms of what they expect the spaces to deliver to them?
Yeah, in fact, tenants or occupiers not only focus on the location, on the quality of the building itself, they are focusing now about, I mentioned adaptability, sustainability, and also this, obviously, the well-being. Mm-hmm. So the comfort, the comfort conditions such as air quality, cooling are really important. Mm-hmm. And also this, once again, this possibility to adapt over time to fit with their organization shift is really important.
And how much of that is also then, do you have to be in line or listening to their HR departments or the data that's coming out? Does that also feed the way that you will be looking at buildings and the way that you're going to repurpose them or reposition them?
Yeah, totally. In fact, it's the tenant's demand is really something which is fundamental in our the development decision. Mm-hmm. We ensure that we are always fit for purpose, and we have a closer relationship with tenants to understand really what they need, and we have a more, let's say, granular approach about a building itself to ensure that it's no longer just square meter we are providing. We are providing an experience. Exactly, we are helping basically our occupiers to grow their operations. Mm-hmm. We are basically creating an environment helping occupiers to thrive and to grow their operations.
In terms of value creation and value measurement, and as we were mentioning before, sort of unlocking value, you would have what would be considered traditional metrics. Are there any other things that have come into the mix, if it were, to say, oh, well, this is what value also is, and this is what we're unlocking through our development and repositioning?
Yeah, through value, creating value is basically unlocking the long-term potential, by delivering the right product to the right end user, obviously. So in terms of metrics, obviously, the world has not totally changed. We are still measuring NOI. We are measuring square footage, obviously. But on top of that, the shift in the market is now we are really try to understand very more in detail tenants' requirements and their satisfaction. So, and we bring on board an operational aspect, meaning that we really try to think through the eyes of an occupier from the beginning, meaning that we imagine from the day one what could be the experience, how the building could totally be great for a tenant, and how we unlock all the potential by bringing operators from the day one in the discussion to ensure that we are really relevant and we bring the best concept to basically future-proof and to re-enchant basically the asset in a way that it's you in front of a rent, you have an experience in more than square meter.
And do you think that's changed and is accelerating in that sense, this more sort of user-centric way of seeing development? Because there was always this kind of thing, in saying, build it and they will come. But obviously you need to work much harder. Does that user-centric approach, you see that's something that's really radically changed now?
Yeah, I think that, it changed basically this trend, in fact, came 10 years ago, but it's truly accelerate with COVID.
Yeah.
When you have like this discussion about employee going back to the office. So meaning that we had to rethink how you could really create a new generation of buildings more desirable for tenants.
Yeah.
And by doing that, we basically try to scale up or to increase the level of game by bringing better buildings or better experience. Okay. And basically, offices at that time compete with remote working.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
So the question is, how could you be better than basically staying at home? So meaning that if I compare with the hotel industry, basically before you go to the Ibis, right? So this is clean, this is great brand, but when you go for a night outside your home,
you'd rather be at home, basically.
Yeah. It's okay, but it's nothing special. Now, to have people moving away, we are creating this sofitel experience in certain segment of. I'm not talking only in office here. Segment of on the market. Obviously, you have a variety of different markets, but for the specific segment, the prime offices located in European CBD, we are really, really upgrading the quality. There is a flight for quality, and it means that by bringing better architecture, better experience, better operators, in a way that you really compete and you ensure that for an employee going back to the office, it's truly something different, more focus on collaboration than individual work.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because there's that flight to quality and race to quality and race to the top. Do you see we've seen the top of the market? Do you know how do you know how far to go, basically, in terms of how much the market can support? When you look at an individual project, for example, do you know we will push it to this level? You're using hotel brands, you're going to Sofitel, or you're going to go up to, I don't know, maybe Raffles or something even higher. How do you know where the ceiling is, basically?
Yeah, that's a good question. There is no one-size-fits-all answers for that. This is really a bespoke approach. We have, for any development or repurposing, have to clearly analyze the markets. What are the market conditions? What are the tenants' demand? What is the expectation in terms of asset quality? Bringing gold all across a building will never be able to push a rent to the roof. We have to be pragmatic and face reality and ensure that we are very focused, very careful. And
not overspeccing,
exactly, to not overspend, to basically ensure that any euro, pounds we are investing create value, and not really destroying value in a way that you are at the peak of the market. It's obviously also relating to the location. In certain markets, that you are like kept, and this is what it is. But we can see also a strong on the market, office market in Europe, a strong for this particular cluster, a strong rental growth.
And it's really interesting. I think that what you said is absolutely spot on with regards to the link to hospitality. And we saw, we've had a couple of hoteliers on the show who've been sort of increasing potentially their price per night, going, well, actually, there's still room in the market to equate for higher rents or higher rooms. You work across prime assets in the European market. Are there any kind of rules or trends which, as you said, they're local specificities, but we talked about the flight for quality. Are there any other things that are, you can't, even with those specificities in the market, you cannot not do them, basically? There are some golden rules that you need to always bear in mind.
But obviously, you can see for a certain asset class, there is always like similarity, common DNA across Europe, right? So you are not reinventing the wheel in each new location. Also, you have to consider that most of our tenants are international companies and located in various markets where we are operating. So there is similarity in demand. But you're right, there is specificity, local specificity. And when you manage a platform, like we have at LaSalle, like a development platform, obviously you scale up about best practice expertise and you ensure that you have like an operational efficiency. But you have also this local, for each project, you have this local needs, local specificity. And this is why we always leverage on our local team and a network of partners to identify each particularity, market-wise, regulation-wise, totally, to ensure that we are really right and we are right in the answer. Still leveraging, obviously, to this platform to ensure that we have like a consistent quality in terms of delivery. But this is always a bespoke approach. Yeah.
And in terms of sort of those difference within the markets and sort of where you can push sort of the rental profile, do you see there's some markets where there's still a lot of movement possible in terms of that flight for quality? Do you I mean, there are local discrepancies that might be due to various things. Like, what are the markets where you can see potentially there's still a lot more growth and a lot more quality to be able to be provided by yourselves and other actors in the market?
Yeah, as I mentioned, there is strong rental growth in a certain city. Just to mention Paris, we are more than 10% rental growth year-on-year on the prime segment, meaning that we are right now securing rents above what we initially imagined. So, meaning that there is obviously some space for that.
So some space for growth.
But we can see now a bifurcation on the markets with international companies able to pay top rents. And you see like local companies start to be limited in their capabilities to secure best location in CBDs and needs start to move on other markets. So, meaning that maybe we are at the roof.
You're at the roof. You know, those are very positive numbers, but obviously that's to counterbalance with, you know, some headlines that we had around office bashing and so on and so forth. You know, you guys seem very positive about offices. How come?
Yeah, I think naturally in any markets you have like a peak and certain times we are in the down cycle. So obviously offices on the past years has a little bit suffered. But we talk in my function about long-term projects. We have initiated some office projects some years ago. And now where we are now, we are almost at delivery.
Yeah.
And we see that we are almost 100% pre-let for most iconic projects, such One Exchange Square in London, such Bergère in Paris.
I mean, those are amazing metrics,
It shows that investors who have trust us on pushing an agenda, even a little bit counter-cycle, on the long term, we manage to secure long-term value. And what is important for us?
I think that's fundamentally, I think one of the reasons why I think, you know, responding to trends in real estate are important, but then also being able to run that long-term cycle. How do you manage that kind of short-term headlines versus long-term strategy? How do you guys do that in terms of not being sort of knocked off course, if it were, by, as we said, by headlines or potential fads or short-term trends?
Yeah, but we say in real estate that timing is everything. Okay, but timing is not really for us a capability to predict the market cycle.
That's true. Yeah,
it's more or less be capable to analyze the fundamentals and what are the structural change on the market. Okay. So sometimes you have to act, right? So you launch project, even if you are in a certain moment on the markets, but you always look to the strong fundamental on the long term to ensure that you will be right at a certain moment in the cycle. Okay. Sometimes the best advice is just to hold. And not to wait.
Quick,
meaning that sometimes you wait for a better market cycle in terms of capital markets, having the occupier market recovered, or you are waiting also for certain uncertainty about regulation, about urban planning set of rules, this kind of thing. So it's dependent. It's always difficult to predict, but we have to act. Because this is always, let's say, for the interest of our clients. Yeah.
And would you say not being controversial, don't worry, but would you say some markets are more cities, and you mentioned European cities, more predictable in terms of their cycles or regulations? I mean, one of the big things we talked about is adaptability. Some markets are not as flexible or have maybe not the structural elements are not as easily gone or easily done for having that adaptability. What are you seeing within the markets? Are there some markets basically which are easier to read than others?
Yeah, obviously, now when we talk about super prime offices, this segment, we know that there is a lack of this product on the market, and we have like
across
demand is basically outpace the supply. Okay, so meaning that to predict, you always look to the development pipeline to ensure that you are not stranded with a lot of competitors at the same moment. But some other markets are, you're right, are tougher. Talking about like a secondary location, it's really more difficult. The question is always, what is your entry point? And this is why you are always to have rigorous underwriting to ensure that you are buying the right entry point in the market. Ensuring that you always analyze the fundamentals, and ensuring that you have a strategy of some flexibility. You are looking for offices, but can you adapt a certain part to something else if the market shifts? This is also the way you protect value, is to ensure that at each time you have a view on the fundamentals, but you are able to create the upside by a potential change in use or change in, or having the right idea to bring the value.
Bring the value up.
Yeah.
In theory, how easy is change of use? Because obviously we were talking about the bricks and the mortar, and the kind of. But in an ideal world, obviously you would want to see that any asset could be anything at any point in time, that it has that capacity to retransform itself. How easy is that in practice? Adaptability and sort of changing the use? Because you also have pressures around sort of local government and urban planning.
To be frank, this is not easy.
Yeah.
Okay, it depends on the market and depends on what we are talking about. Physically speaking, an asset has certain architecture, and you cannot fit anything in any type of building. Give you an example: London, you have a very deep office floor. It's very difficult to convert that in resi.
Into resi. Yeah.
Also, the issue on the municipalities, the cities, what they want. So sometimes they don't want new offices in certain location, or and certain. Particularly in Europe, you're in certain area, you have like stranded offices, but the municipality is not really supportive about converting it in something different. Why? Because potentially it's bring new public equipment. Potentially also the political aspect. The new inhabitants are maybe not the same political view on the local municipality. But in some markets where and especially in continental Europe, where the shape of building are not totally different in certain between certain asset classes, you could adapt it. And if you have the municipality and all the stakeholders supportive, there is really opportunity to move from stranded assets to something different. We are right now studying 2 conversion in Germany. And we are finger crossed if we manage to de-risk those.
And to get everyone on board, then you can push forward.
Yeah, we are working on it.
Yeah.
But this is we clearly see opportunity for preserving value and basically ensuring that this asset will be future ready on the long term. Yeah.
On the long term as well. In terms of sort of the structural shifts that you have facing sort of offices and retail and mixed use, how and that sort of hybridization of assets, is that something that's a big topic at LaSalle at the moment, of saying that, we have this traditional way of looking at those, but that actually they can learn from each other? Is that something that you guys look at a lot? I
think you are still, when you underwrite a deal, you still choose, your asset
you
class,
have to
right?
tick the box.
You don't say,
exactly,
I buy an asset and let's see later what we'll do. So obviously you are looking for a certain asset class, okay? But always think about the adaptability once again. Is that a mix? Can we bring some mixed use in an office potentially to create, to ensure that the addition of every asset class are more than just a pure addition, but you create
synergies.
You have you have an added value. Obviously, we think a little bit more an asset now not as a fixed product, but something a kind of urban platform. When on the long term you can change it, especially in the city in CBDs. But this is something that we have in mind. But to be clear, when we tackle development strategies, we go from A to Z as a process to have a 360 view at the end to say how can we change it. So you have to onboard on the beginning, this capability to be adaptable on the long term. But you always pick a side somehow.
Well, you have to choose one strategy or another. Yeah. In terms of stranded assets, then, do you think some, as much as we would like to think that every single asset has another life or the potential for another life, do you think there are some things which were built specifically for one and have now become obsolete and will need to be, or don't have a second or a third or fourth life?
Obviously, when you are talking about European CBD, right, the market is offer lots of potential of reconversion in the long term. So we have really not seen on the market an asset totally stranded. On the long term, even if it takes 10 years, you have always to find, a way to repurpose it.
To make it work.
Okay. Yeah. The question is where you are really on, let's say, outside cities, not really connected. When you have like a monovalent function, like a kind of industrial sites, it's really hard sometimes to find a new life for those assets. And this is why you have to ensure that you are very clear. You don't have this kind of asset in your portfolio.
Yeah.
And if you have, it's maybe time to divest. Because if you are not able to justify that, you will know the next buyer and what will be the next life, you have really a problem.
And then when you're faced, and obviously you guys have had great success, in the last couple of years and further back, when you are faced with something like that, do you come together as a team and you basically, how do you brainstorm the ideas of going, like, as you said, you've got multiple scenarios and trying to keep it alive? Or how do you work those kind of brainstorming sessions where nothing's off the table? How does it work?
Yeah, there is no simple answer for that.
Yeah.
And I will not tell you or LaSalle magic recipe.
It's a magic recipe, yeah.
But basically, if you take this question with an analytical point of view, it's always first what the clients need, in terms of what is the strategy of the fund or the vehicle owning the properties. Secondly, you analyze, the market cycles, market conditions. You should have, obviously, a strong knowledge of the assets itself, of this capability, this structural capability to be repurposed. Yeah. Once you have analyzed that, you identify clearly the potential, the gap between the existing value versus the future one. And then you launch a set of feasibility studies to carefully analyze, once again, the market, the rental value, market demands, to ensure you are right, even if you are in an uncertain world, to clearly identify this potential of value creation and ensure that you spend very carefully the right amount of capex to reposition, to convert these assets.
Is there any room left in decision making for gut instinct and those kind of things, which kind of seem to be some of the drivers behind some of the developments before, where people thought, "Oh, no, I just know it's going to work"? Or are they all fundamentally now really based on all those kind of metrics that you're looking at?
You talk about instinct. I think more about experience, about a team. So we have the chance at LaSalle to have a lot of different type of person working there with different experience. And when we brainstorm together, we could basically leverage on different experience. Yeah. Okay. So, the instinct is basically to identify with data and also our experience what could be the recipes for success.
Success. And talking about success then, do you have, or could you share with us, without going, as you said, into the secret sauce or the secret formula, the Coca-Cola recipe of LaSalle, but an example or a case study where you've really sort of applied all those different elements within the repositioning, within the redevelopment for that success to sort of take that asset on the journey? Do you have one that you could share with us that sort of maybe even started off in a complicated place where there was that requirement for that in-depth analysis?
I could maybe talk about one of project in Paris. It's a central Paris offices called Bergère Paris. It's a 26,000 square meter building. It's an heritage building owned by BNP. We bought it in March 2020. It was during the first lockdown.
Yeah, first lockdown.
Like really
kept you busy.
Yeah, exactly. And the story behind that, it was like an old bank, a headquarter of the Comptoir National d'Escompte, which is the ancestor of BNP. Mm-hmm. And at that time, BNP used it for 140 years as an owner-occupier.
Wow.
And when we bought it, we see important potential of value creation by carrying out a large refurbishment project. Okay, the site was very inward-looking, and the idea was to basically to open up to the neighbors, to neighborhood, to activate a ground floor and bring premium amenities inspired by hospitality. It was also to bring the best-in-class workplace experience. To ensure that it fits the latest needs for tenants. We bring sustainability to the roof in a way that we want to ensure that it's really attractive for tenants, responding about their sustainability requirements
that they have,
and ensuring that we also keep in mind the liquidity in terms of capital market. And we bring lots of innovation. The first Smart Score Platinum in France.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of technology, a sensor, measuring air quality, measuring occupation in real time. And we like to bring, to ensure that on the market it's seen as a new product, something truly innovative, bringing lots of improvement about the, let's say, the old bank look. And from day one in this project, when we tackle it, we ensure that we imagine this project as a multi-let building. How could be the experience? How we could bring, something unique in this building, improving, for instance, the amenities, the external spaces, and we bring also discussion on operator concepts, totally future ready in a way that you could ensure that within the building you could easily ensure that it could evolve in a way that if the tenant would like to reorganize the amenities cluster, we bring the maximum technical constraints in the design to ensure that if you need to repurpose it, you don't really need to have heavy capex over time. Okay.
Quick question for you. And going back to the market strategies right at the beginning when you saw the building and when you described it and sort of know the building quite well as well, the Ned in London springs to mind where there was, this ability. It was an old, banking headquarters as well next to the Bank of England. And their choice was to transform it from banking and business and offices to, the lifestyle, hotel-led, private members club, bars and restaurant F&B proposal that it is now. Is that an option that was on the table for Bergère or not at all?
Yeah, it remains an office building. Yeah, but we bring some mixed use within the building. Okay, we offer the possibility for certain part to become retail
and public facing. Then.
Okay, we imagine like public accessible part. I mentioned the future ready in a way that. A tenant in a multi-let scenario, you could easily adapt, where, for instance, a restaurant, it's totally independent of the rest of the building. It could be during the day, exclusively for tenants, but night and weekends, it could be open to public.
Yeah.
Because we bring this restaurant in one of the best parts of the building, and we imagine as the quality is like unbelievable, we really truly imagine that an operator could offer the possibility to Parisian.
Yeah, sorry. No, you make it sound easy in the sense that that there has been that full transformation. But obviously, when you're dealing, and I think this is another core element, when you're dealing with those historical buildings, you've got a lot of elements that you need to respect. Whether historical, protected, listed. How did you guys work around all that? Because that's obviously, to use a French, mettre les bâtons dans les roues, or just complicate things. How did that collaboration work with the, keeping, as you mentioned, the heritage, the history alive, but making it future ready into a new product, so people didn't see it as, it's the old banking halls.
Obviously, people can see heritage as a constraint, okay, but it's also an opportunities. Because, behind heritage, you have like emotional value. Yeah. Obviously, when you tackle a project like that, and this is true for every project, you have to engage all the stakeholders very in advance to ensure that you create, a shared narrative together instead of seeing that as a constraint. you basically ensure that from the beginning you have an open communication to ensure that you align the interest of everyone. Obviously, this is not an easy ride.
Yeah, of course.
But you try to ensure that you imagine like the stakeholder like long-term partners, okay? Rather than people slowing you down. Okay? To ensure that you are not negotiating you're bringing them from the beginning instead of negotiating later with them where it could be detrimental for your project.
It could be detrimental. And obviously you were mentioning right at the beginning of the podcast, the episode, you were saying, you're sort of past also in construction. I mean, when you see a project like that, do you put on your construction hat again and start seeing all the potentials for improvement, but also, as you mentioned, all those kind of difficulties within those historical buildings?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think my helmet is always on my head when I'm on a construction site. Yeah. Obviously, there's a question for me is always to ensure for a project we are still, on track.
Yeah, on track.
Okay, cost-wise, product-wise, but there is, I mentioned about the fast-paced cycle. Sometimes you have to, during a process, during this a project, you have to enhance or to change to ensure that you're always right in the tenant occupier's demands. Just to give you an example, when we tackled Bergère, it was just after COVID. We see this trend and this potential about rental growth in the specific market where we are, the 9th district of Paris. And we see the opportunity to basically enhance the base design, to bring something with more architectural quality, to ensure that we are really right on the super prime segment of Paris.
And you mentioned, that notion of these historical buildings that carry, to your words, that emotional tie-in, that capacity to really storytell. How important was that element when you're talking to potential tenants and talking to clients to be able to tell the story of the building and what it would mean for their brand of being in this building? How important was that?
I think I mentioned about the fly for quality, and quality is not just technical specifications. I mentioned adaptability. Yeah. It's basically to convince a tenant, an occupier, that with the building you will provide one of the best experience, right, for their tenants, for their employees. Yeah. Ensure that for tenants, this is the right product to grow their business, as I mentioned. So, and obviously, it's to convince them. You have to have a certain tools like marketing tools and communication tools that you know well.
We do from time to time.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. But to communicate that, it's also about emotion, obviously. Okay, and you leverage on for different assets or different points. Sometimes it's technology, sometimes it's heritage, sometimes it's architectural beauty. It depends. But this is always, I think, we are obviously human, rational, but emotion is kind of important for any decision.
And in the decision-making process then, have you found, and this is a kind of common theme that we're seeing, that you're having to a business, and this notion of B2B to B2C, that you're pitching your building to different people within that team. So you're going to have to make it relevant, as you mentioned, to them. Do you see that you're having to pitch to more people than what you were before in terms of the decision-making process on the client side?
Yeah, we basically talk to lots of different people, right? So you are obviously C-level in an organization that need to be convinced, but you there have to ensure that the employee will be happy. So in terms of discussion, you can talk with HR, talk with marketing people of the company, obviously CEOs, the real estate as well. You have also to convince from the workplace point of view, you are relevant, you are agile in a way that you could fit out projects. I think it's maybe more complex today than it was 10 years before. Yeah.
In terms of pitching it to different audiences and making that building relevant. Yeah. In terms of Bergère, which we just mentioned, what are the kind of the lessons that you learned across the way from, what was that sort of really long-term journey? What have you learned from this experience at Bergère?
I could say I learned a lot of different things, obviously. But one thing maybe was the most impacting for me is the fact that when you have ambitions at the beginning, and you transform that in a very compelling concept that you imagine, and you ensure that the design captures that, especially when you think about a multi-let building from day one, you already imagine the experience with various operators. You bring like food and beverage operator, you bring event operator in your building, and you have this story that you tell is captured by the architect, interior designers, and ultimately you manage to convince tenants, even if this is a single let. I think what I learned from that, it's when you really think about the experience really in detail in a granular way, it's really convincing for an international company like the tenant we secure recently on Bergère. Yeah.
As you said, you've taken it on a journey. You've asked yourself all those questions as a potential tenant. I mean, that's a really, as you said, and it closes off with a really nice story with regards to the deal. So would you say that your view of offices as an asset class within those prime markets is an overarchingly positive one for the future?
What I can tell you is over the past months, especially since 2025, we managed to secure almost 90,000 square meters of prime office, meaning leased. Yeah. It means that we see a really growing appetite for top state-of-the-art sustainable building, highly amenitized, well located. There is really a growing appetite for that, especially for international companies. So we see in this range of the market opportunities. Obviously, you know the figures. If you talk about Parisian market, you have almost 6 million square meters of offices empty, not all well located, obviously, more or less trended in a secondary third location of Paris. That's clearly more challenging, but we mentioned the potential, and this is a growing subject on the market, how you could potentially repurpose those.
And change them,
That's the kind of challenge that we are facing. It's basically this bifurcation of the market. Once again, like CBDs, market well located, like highly amenitized, working well, but it's questionable more the strategy to go to secondary location if you are looking for offices, empty offices, unless you have like repurposing strategy.
A repurposing strategy. So going to that and sort of looking to the future, what is it that excites you the most about sort of the future of real estate development and real estate in the market? What is it that,
I think the increasingly operational nature of real estate, I think is really exciting. And the thing that we can see on various schemes is we are more and more thinking as an operator of offices, where it's no longer providing a fixed product, but it's also thinking about real estate as a service. So, and be really spot on about the choice of operator. And it's more or less what is inside the box than the box itself. And I think I've met recently lots of different talented operators, bringing something really fresh and new on the market. And I'm really looking forward to seeing new project embedded this operator concept.
And you see, because of that more operational level of real estate on the commercial side, on the office side, you see new people coming into that market as well, spotting that opportunity and saying this is a new area to play where they might have been traditionally in residential or hospitality.
Yeah, I think you're right. There is a variety of new operators. You can see in Resi, for instance, the micro-living concept. You have lots of new operators. If we talk about PBSA, you see lots of different new operators with new concepts. I think it's bringing lots of innovation in our industry, and it's really exciting.
No, that's great. In terms of sort of finishing off with a few sort of core questions that we ask all our guests, what would you still say is one of the main levers of value which is still potentially underestimated at the moment, where you still feel that we're not necessarily looking at that in the right way? What would you say?
Maybe time of the way to de-risk it. I think it's really something sometimes we underestimate, because the worst thing is always to be stranded with a building with zero NOI, with costs, like cost to bear the assets, and have not anticipated years in advance what could be the future. Especially, we know that at a certain point in an asset cycle, you have to re-inject CapEx. Okay? Yeah. Core buildings never core forever, right?
Yeah.
So,
that's good.
Yeah, it could be the name of a James Bond movie, but
a real estate one, never.
But by that I mean, you have to always, with a strategy, to anticipate when you need to divest, when you need to be certain that you reinvest. And this is why also you have to tackle the sustainability question with a long-term view, just to protect future value, to ensure also that you keep liquidity on the market high, to ensure that you minimize this CapEx requirements on the future.
And would you say, so to that point then, what would be your kind of something that over your career has been your guiding principle? You would say, okay, that you've applied it again and again and again, and you can see yourself kind of applying it in the future? What would be that guiding principle?
Yeah, maybe it could be agility, because once you, in a design, you bring this capability of a building to be flexible, to adjust to not any, but various type of clients' needs, it brings value, and it ensures that you really thought in the process. You thought very in detail what could be the future of your assets. And I like this mindset about agility, because it ensures that you are not missing a point and you are not missing a box in a development.
And to close off, one final question. What is your secret formula for value creation when you're doing these real estate developments or repurposing? What would you say is maybe your core principle or around value creation?
I don't know if this is a secret sauce or something that everyone could reuse, but I try always with my team to see through the eyes of an occupier, okay, and ensure that we are really respectful of an occupier about his identity, about his needs, to really thought what could be the best project in a given context, to always bring value and really care for the product, the final product, to ensure that we are always convincing. And for me, it's a way to protect long-term value and ensure that you have also long-term relationship with your occupier and potential tenant retention on the long run.
Perfect. What a brilliant way to finish the podcast. Marc, thanks ever so much for joining in this Paris special and giving us, your take on the market and future evolutions.
Thanks, Adrian.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Bricks and More. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a colleague or friend who would appreciate it. If you're not already, connect with me on LinkedIn, whether to say hello or discuss a destination, real estate, or hospitality project of your own. Finally, please rate the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Again, share the episode, connect with me on LinkedIn, and rate the podcast. I'm Adrian Strittmatter, and I'll be back soon with the next episode.